started.
If I can call the meeting to order and ask council to please move the approval of the agenda. Could I have a mover? Councillor Ronsley and Councillor Ando. And any additions? Thank you, interim CAO Grant McGradu.
Mayor, under 7A, under which is going to be the community center, it'll be the report entitled Furniture, Fixtures and Equipment. And under 8BI from the Manager of Public Works is the report on the update on Harvey intake.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any other additions?
These were
Seeing
circulated earlier today.
Thank you so much. Seeing none, call question on the motion. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. If we can move along to public participation. Do we have public participation this evening?
I think I'm just the only one.
Thank you.
Thank you. In your minutes, at the end, number 13, it said that I had questioned Councillor McLaughlin's registration fees, and it was not his.
I noted
So
that,
if that could
yeah.
just be corrected.
Thank you. I've got a note, and I think that will be correcting the record, yeah. Thank you so much.
Also, you know,
I've got it.
so 2 seconds later, in the draft minutes, it said that I presented, and I wasn't here, so.
Oh, we've got it. We were noted today as Mr. Ron Wilkie. Thank you. Okay, with that, can we have council make any, move the minutes, pardon me, going through delegations, there being none, and have council please move and second the minutes. Thank you, Councillor Bain. And a seconder, please. Councillor Ronsley, thank you. Any changes, additions, deletions? Thank you, Mr. McGradu.
Madam Mayor, there are two changes that were brought to our attention. One was from Mrs. Public Cover. It's actually showing in the agenda, but the minutes that were referenced should address what she handed out in a script form on October 21st, and it was circulated earlier today.
Thank you, yes.
The second one, as was just stated, it wasn't, it showed Elaine Wilkie. It should be Mr. Wilkie,
Okay, thank you so much.
who did ask the question.
Okay, and I have a couple of changes. One is pertaining to item 13, but I just want to look first. If I can just, and I know time is very, very tight, but just to Mr. McGradu and to Ms. Hogland, when we do have some time, perhaps next week, to put together a meeting for the solid waste, just the planning, and we might be able to do that with, to go ahead with the committee if you want. Okay, I just thought that was a little reminder. To Ms. Hogland, excellent work at the beach bar.
We're just dealing with
Sorry, I am just dealing with minutes. I'm doing all unfinished business, or pardon me, business arising. And then lastly, 13, Ms. Conlon, in the second paragraph on page 10 of 68, Councillor Ronsley advised that the registration fees were charged to a credit card by the village office staff. It was also noted that the recent UBCM, all capitals, no periods, that's UBCM, fees were paid, registration fees were paid by the village for Councillor Ronsley and Mayor Broughton. And then the rest remains the same. And interim CAO McGradu paid his attendance fees. Thank you. Yeah, totally just. Thank you very much. Seeing no further, oh, pardon me, Councillor McAndo. Councillor Ando, please. Thank you, sorry.
On page 4, or page 2 of 9 of the minutes, the third bullet from the bottom, where it says C, the initial C and E, it should be C and E.
C and E,
Right.
that's
so It
right.
stands for compliance and
Enforcement.
officer.
Thank you so much.
page 8 of 9 of the minutes. Number 13, the last sentence of Mr. Wilkie's question and comments. Councillor Andrew questioned if the village would be held responsible if the trees were on municipal property will need tree permits in the future, was what my question was.
Okay, thank you very much.
That's all I have
So-
for the minutes
sorry.
itself.
Did you get that? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay, anything else? Nothing further. Call question on the motion. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. If we can go to business arising from the minutes. Councillor Ando, I just need to know whether this is going to be received or whether I need to recuse myself. It's information for the table. I'll just be guided.
Is there a motion to receive, or are there going to be questions?
Receive.
Receive. Do I have a seconder? Okay, seconder. All those in favor of receipt? Carried. Thank you very much. If we can move along then to unfinished business. I'm sorry.
I have some business arising from the minutes that we have on table, and I thought,
Oh, I'm sorry. Business arising from the minutes. Yes, thank you.
so my first one is number 3 of the minutes from October the 21st. So this is for clarification from the interim CEO, Mr. McGrady. When a member recuses them or declares and recuses themselves, do the minutes need to record that what they recuse
reason.
themselves for?
Yes.
I think that it should say, right.
So if we
Where,
look at,
where is that again? Just
Mayor Broughton recused herself
okay.
as a
Sorry, where is
result
it?
of being a partial owner of strata. I don't
Okay, yeah.
even know
You're- yeah.
the name, the commercial strata. Thank you very much. Anything else? Yeah, that's the term that we've used previously.
Oh, okay,
commercial
that's
strata.
where it is, okay.
Yeah,
so
percent.
I have a question about page 4, third paragraph, last sentence, when we're talking about the community center renewal, and it says further expenditures are required to add accessibility features to the outside of the building and the gymnasium and access to council chambers. So I wasn't sure, or it wasn't clear to me that we were adding access to council chambers. Is that correct?
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes.
Thank you.
And does that also mean to the front of the village offices?
Through you, Madam Mayor, no. The access at this point in time will be to the design that is being worked on will be flattening out the slope on the Center Point Road. So that part will be flattened out. It'll be coming out. The community center door, the ramp that we're looking at, will go to the west a little bit, slant to the west a little bit, and to get into the community center hall to meet the grade. And that what we're looking at is then there will be a slight ramp that'll go and be raised up to go into the council chamber.
Council chamber is probably 8 to 10 inch height elevation higher than what the community center is. So
That's why there's going to be two different ramps.
it's 2 different ramps, and you have enough length in order to make that much of a rise, as far as you know.
Through your Mayor, the design, there was a design that's being looked at right now. There were, the company that we're looking at is was there today shooting elevations.
Oh, great.
And we believe that that's all going to work, and then it has to be approved afterwards. But it appears it's all going to work.
And then this, on page 4 of 9 of the minutes, it says Transleague meetings held on the North Shore where 40% of the attendees were Lions Bay residents. Can you give us a frame of reference as to how many total people are there?
Oh,
So that
there's hardly,
40%
sure, there's hardly any, but the 40% vote really counted. So what they did, we had a whole series, and thank you, Councillor Ronsley, for attending all of those as well. So there were a whole series of North Shore meetings for TransLink to look at the proposed changes. The Village of Lions Bay bus users, including Councillor Ronsley and myself, represented the perspective that we wanted the bus service to remain the same rather than wending down to Marine Drive from Caulfield, going along Marine Drive and coming forward. And that did mean that we needed to be at those input meetings. And so where there were maybe 28 people representing all of the North Shore interests, Lions Bay was in fact 40% of those. And we consistently voted for no change, and that is in the plan for the next 10 years. I don't know if it's a 10-year plan or a 20-year plan, but it is it's secured in the plan. Thank you.
So there are some residents that also attend and they have the opportunity to vote, or I don't
Yes,
understand how it works.
it's a voting process. It's a dot voting process. So it's the consultants from TransLink, and it's what they do is what they did at each of the meetings. We went to all of them, and what they do at each of the meetings is they present, and then they have a board to show what's your preferred routes, and we preferred the stability because it would actually take longer for our residents to move circuitously from Caulfield. And we talked to them about that, and obviously I did as well as Councillor Ronsley did, along with our community members as well. So it was a very positive. It was a very positive. The whole process was set up in a positive manner, and it was a very positive process. And there were very senior people at each of those meetings from TransLink, and we were well represented. And there may have not have been that high of attendance at some of the meetings, but.
Thank you. So I'm finished with those minutes. And now, business arising, I have one comment about the report that was in the package. And
Which report is that?
Which is this?
the
was received.
Alview tree cutting.
Oh, should I recuse myself at this point? I think I should. So I'm just going to, may I just stop any discussion?
For what reason are you
Oh,
in
thank you.
charge?
I'm recusing myself.
I think
because
it's
I'm part
who's in
owner
charge.
of the commercial strata.
Might as well
It's all
continue on.
fine with
Thank
me. I'm easy.
Councillor Randall.
So my question would be to Mr. McGrattu is, I'm wondering why we're using inches rather than centimeters when our bylaw is in centimeters. So would it not be better to state it as 25 point, like bullet number 1, where it says 0.8 feet 10 inches, which would be 25 centimeters, and then Mr. Chapman is instead of 0.2 feet, put 5 centimeters on private land and 15 centimeters on public land, and then that would represent 75% on municipal property for that fir tree.
Through you, Acting Mayor, 1 and 2 are taken from the survey map themselves. So they use inches. I don't know why they don't use centimeters, but they use inches. In the paragraph below, you'll notice that I use both centimeters and inches. But I took the diameters straight from the survey map.
Can we somewhere note that the 15 centimeters works out to be about 75% that tree is 75% on municipal land? Because I think that that's important.
Okay.
The fir tree with 5 centimeters on private land and 15 centimeters on public land, that would make 3/4 or 75% of that tree is on public land or municipal property. Can that be noted somewhere?
Should we note it on the summary as well, where we're talking about the measurements taken at the property?
That would be ideal, but that minimum, I would like the 75% noted that it's on public land.
Okay. Councilor McLaughlin, comments?
Hasn't the document been accepted?
Interim CAO McRadu, is this being accepted and can it be changed?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I guess if you want to slice and dice it any way you wish, that's entirely up to council. Again, I'm repeating myself. The 1 and 2 is taken directly from the survey maps. If you want to interpret it a different way and you want the record to report a different way, that's entirely up to council. But again, I must specify to clearly state it depends on where you measure natural grade.
Mm-hmm. Councilor Orlando.
So the reason why this has been included in our agenda package tonight was the question of the percentage and when it was in the minutes, and that's why this report is here, and that's why I think it's important now that we have the document in front of us and we can see that it's 75%. I think the 75% is important for people to know what percent of the tree is on municipal land and what percent of the tree is on private land.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's entirely up to council. I think, if anything, you should use the word approximately.
Approximately, okay.
I have no problem with the word approximately added, but as long as it says the percentage.
And I'm assuming that those numbers are correct.
Do you have any other comments? No. Do we have a consensus? Should we put approximately in the percentage? Any hands? Everybody agreeable? Agreeable. Carrie?
Great.
That's
Mayor
it?
Brown?
I'll get it.
Good.
Thank you. And if we can proceed then, and we've moved through unfinished, we've moved to unfinished business. Is that correct? 7A?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. To the Community Center Repair and Replace Project and the furniture, fixtures, and equipment
Madam Mayor,
resolution.
this came about because of concerns that have been expressed by some of the users of the past users of the community center, current users of the community center. The library has asked that their shelving be either cut and painted or painted. We're still working out those details. Some of the other concerns have been expressed about some of the furniture that was that they would like to see in the new kitchen and in the new community rooms upstairs. There were, as this project has been very tight, and it was a repair and replacement project, there was very little money put in for FF&E, which is the furniture, fixtures, and equipment, and council was aware of that at the very beginning with respect to the scope ladder. Now that we're getting down to the substantial completion has been issued, and today we went through for the final deficiencies of the project. As I stated, I still believe we're going to be 1 to 2%. I think in any type of a renovation project, if anybody's ever gone through a renovation project, to be within 2% is a pretty darn close bullseye. Where we are at this point in time, we still have a number of things that still have to be worked out. We're having discussions with Kindred, so we're getting close to the budget. However, there are some things that we would like to move forward, and the community has approached us about some things they would like to see, including furniture. There was money set aside for the village office itself, and we are still in the process of buying a couple of things, including drapes, not drapes, but blinds. The blinds in that office, if you had noticed, were horizontal shades that were essentially disintegrating, so those all had to be thrown away. So we still have to have some mats, but it looks like we'll be, and the tables, if you've ever been in the office, one of the desks is being held together by duct tape, and the other one was being leveled by a brick. So new desks, 2 new desks were purchased. All the rest have been reused. So we had budgeted about $5,000. It looks, and that includes moving charges, computer, and other items like that, and miscellaneous things. We feel that we will be under budget, and so we believe that we will have about $1,000 left in the village office budget. However, there is no money for other FF&E for the community center. So if council wishes to see these types of works undertaken, including the library and other mats in the community center, some painting, a few other little things that were not painting, tiles, and a couple of other things, I would certainly recommend that council approve up to $9,000, and then we have in the village office itself at $1,000 to be used up to fund the FF&E. But that's entirely up to councils, what you want to do with that. We may be able to do it within the money that's approved, but if we're going to move quickly in getting these things done while the contract is still there, we believe we should move now. So the recommendation is that council approve the expenditure up to $9,000 to be combined with the $1,000 remaining in the village office budget to be used to fund the FF&E for the community center, and that these funds be charged to the unrestricted reserves.
Okay, can I have a mover? For the motion,
I'll
thank you,
move it.
Councillor Ronsley, and a seconder, Councillor McLaughlin. Historical and, the library also are requiring storage, and this will cover that as well, just so that you're aware of that. And it may not need that much, but the recommendation has been from our design person, who's donating her time, but is a professional, saying that it should be at a commercial level, just so that the wear and tear on the table. So it may not, we don't have the costing in yet, but this allows us to move ahead. So any other discussion on this? Yes, Councillor Bain?
Somebody have your question. How are the budget to the end of the year doing? Are we looking good? Do we have access?
Through you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
It's tight, but we are probably going to have surplus for the end of this year. The capital surplus is, unfortunately, is going to be looking good because we weren't able to complete all the projects that we were hoping to. But there will be some funds left over in the operating reserve.
Okay. Councillor McLaughlin?
Thank you. My assessment, speaking with the accountant, is the same as Mr. McGrady's on the budget. The questions for Mr. McGrady, is the 9 sufficient? Is 14 a different number? I mean, we don't want you to come back again.
Through you, Madam Mayor, this wasn't included in the original budget because I didn't believe that, I thought there was going to be other ways to fund these things. That funding hasn't materialized, and so therefore $10,000 is a fair amount of money for this. I don't think we would spend it all, but I don't want to go higher, because if you go higher, some people will tend to spend it.
Yeah,
my feeling is that the community's waited a long time for this, and I think these are some minor things. And I think what's I guess, changed my mind is that there's a lot of volunteer groups that have volunteered a lot of their time, and they're saying, look, we need some help. And so that's I think is the main reason, that this recommendation is coming forward. I purposely didn't include it in the original budget. Council is aware of it. However, at this point, we're getting close. We might be able to suck it in within the budget. I doubt it, but we might be able to.
If I might add too, that this would be for fixtures such as holding the hockey net up in the air versus on the floor and things like that, where we can actually optimize that space. So things that are safe, but can optimize the space. Okay, if there's no, oh yes, I'm sorry, Councillor Ando.
The shelves that have been requested to be painted, are they the former shelves, or are they the shelves that were donated by a resident?
The shelves that were donated by the resident, they looked at so many times, and they were very wide, so they went back and forth and then decided not to, and then the shelves, I think, were re-gifted. And then they went back again to think about them, but they were 5 feet wide. So they were whereas the shelves that they have now probably are about 40 inches maybe wide. So that's quite a difference, yeah. So they're going with the shelves that they have now, and the shelves that they have now are really strong plywood, as you know. I know that you know. And they're just, they're built like a Sherman tank, so they're wanting to go with that. And they are going back and forth about cutting one level off because it would allow the light to filter through, and so they're looking at that. What does that mean for their books? So that's why, and they did not want to move in until January because some members are away at this time. Okay, could I call question on the motion? All those in favor? Thank you very much. Carried unanimously. If we can move along then to reports, and could I have council move the reports? And my apologies, I normally have a report in, and I don't have a report, but I'll give a verbal report and ask then in alphabetical order for others to give a verbal report. But for the reports that are on table, could I please have council move receipt? Thank you, Councillor Bain, and a seconder. Councillor Ronsley, thank you. Call question on receipt. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Okay, just beginning with the mayor's report. I worked with a team of both staff and a team that included Heather Hood and Louis Peterson and this school that we're in to create and submit an age-friendly grant. And that age-friendly grant will go toward Senior Social Circle, which is a series of opportunities on a weekly basis to have enrichment and activities and people to get to know one another. In addition, it has 40% against funding that can go to the accessibility ramp. So that has been sent off. It was due October 31st. It was sent at that time. And discussions, I've already begun discussions with Victoria before that as well. We unpacked the kitchen, and I want to just comment on that, just to thank staff very much, but to also say that we actually unpacked everything and we have more space than we had before. This is a good news story. We have 2 completely empty cupboards, lower cupboards, and we have 1 large, completely empty drawer. Now, this is a real success story. I know it doesn't sound successful, but it really is. And we have counters that it wasn't so important at the time, but I thought it was important, and council thought it was important. But now that Ebola is here, the counters are a bacteria-resistant counter. So I think that that's a value add that I just wanted to note. And with regard to, well, I'll just leave it to the other report later. It's been a busy time, and it's been a busy time for all of our community asking about water, and so we'll look at Nikki Hogland's report momentarily. So we'll go on to Councillor Ando.
I'd like to report about the before and after school care. That North Shore Neighborhood House will be withdrawing their services, I believe, at the end of December. So it's my understanding that the Play School is looking into trying to take over or to combine services or to make some kind of arrangement for the before and after school care. But I just found out last week, so that's why I'd like to bring it to council's attention, just and have it noted.
Maybe I can just bring up that when Councillor Ronsley and I were helping plant bulbs, what came up was if it can be 5 days a week, I know that that's a real hardship because it's based on demand, but we've got a paradox where if it's not 5 days a week, we've got the demand going out of the community. So I know that you'll bring that forward. Thank you. In alphabetical order, Councillor Bain? Nothing? Okay. Councillor McLaughlin? Councillor Ronsley? Okay, thank you so much. If I can move along then to our staff reports and go to Mr. McGrado, interim CAO. Mr. McGrado? Nothing? Okay. And go to the Manager of Public Works. Ms. Hogland, would you like to join us? And please bring a chair up to the table if you would. Oh, we've got a chair right here for you. And Council, you've got the report before you.
Good evening. Okay, so it's been fairly busy, I guess we could say, from Public Works. You do have the report in front of you. I thought what I would do is take the opportunity to let you know what has happened. Sorry. I thought I would take the opportunity to let you know what has happened since I wrote the report, and then if there are any questions that you have with regard to the report, feel free to ask me and I'll do my best to answer them.
Okay, thank you.
So on Monday, we did have LNA Equipment come and do their site visit.
Good.
And they've, I think, got a game plan as to how they're going to manage the wood debris to begin with, and then the more sediment-based debris afterwards. My crews dug the test pits, and the reason that we had to dig those were twofold. One was to try to figure out what's underneath the road, because we do need to strip the road down and rebuild it back up, and we do have a water main in there. We had an engineer on site throughout the process just to see what was going on, because they will have to, of course, come up with a design drawing that's constructible for the road. Two things were quite interesting from that. One is that the water main is not where all of our as-built indicated is from 1985. So it's actually good and bad news. It's good news in that it's not 2 feet down from the surface, which is what we were quite afraid of. We didn't know how shallow it was. It's definitely deeper.
It is.
Because we've dug down more than 8 feet, and it wasn't where it was on the as-built. So we will have the design for the road done most likely by tomorrow. So the engineer will have us a design. The good news is that we will be able to walk an excavator up to the site. We can't float it up because the road is too narrow and it switches back too often, but we will be able to walk an excavator up, and we will also be able to have an empty rock truck go up. We don't want to haul down loaded rock trucks at this point. We want to get the road fixed first. But we can definitely walk up that excavator on a rock truck, and the premise is still the same as was put forward in my report, which was get the wood debris removed so we can see what's underneath it. We will use the rock truck to haul that wood debris only to the burn pit. We are not intending to burn it. We are intending to dispose of it in the same manner that forestry would dispose of wood that isn't saleable. So make sure that that occurs. In order to get the excavator up to the site, which will happen tomorrow, the excavator will come to it'll get trucked up to the Ocean View Gate, and it will walk off the platform there. It will fill in the test pits and compact the fill that we use to fill back up the test pits, because we don't have the equipment to compact that properly. So what we'll do is it will be on the Ocean View, the gate side of things to begin with. It will put the road back together in such a manner that it can then walk up over that road, and rock truck can follow it. So it will start removing the wood debris. A caveat to keep in mind, of course, is everything is really predicated on the weather.
Absolutely.
So today was a great day to have, because we had the torrential rain before. Operationally, we are not allowed up there after such a rainfall.
Yeah.
So having today not rain at all really is helping our cause. L&A Contracting were highly recommended by Forestry. They've worked in debris-prone areas before, and they are well aware of what they have to do and what they cannot do in these types of situations. They're very used to working under temporary weather-related operational shutdown procedures. That's pretty important at this point.
Vital.
So I'm confident that they will do the right thing in the area. So today we had confirmation that all of those machines could go up. That was from the engineer. L&A Equipment confirmed that they will have an excavator on site tomorrow. So tomorrow and Thursday, weather permitting, we will have the excavator on site. We'll get all that wood debris out of the way. Friday, again, weather permitting, we're hoping to get enough of the road up at the very top of the intake cleared so that we can get a Vactor truck in and start getting the sediment that is stuck in the rock chamber and in the main that goes from the intake to the rock chamber, get it out. If we can get that out, we can start getting water to Harvey. So that's our goal for the remainder of this week. Then once we get the wood debris done, we get the Vactor up, we get Harvey up and running, we have a bit of breathing room, and we also need to then start really concentrating on the road, because we do not want to have to double handle the sediment debris that's located up at the site. So at that point, the same excavator that's doing all the work up at the top will simply walk down and start doing the road.
Great.
We'll have the design ready. They're used to building roads. It'll happen fairly quickly.
Yeah.
Once that road is up to snuff and we know that it's not going to be a concern anymore, we will start bringing rock trucks up and or dump trucks, depending on which one we end up using, and we will start hauling out the debris that is sediment based, so rocks and muck that's still up there. We're going to truck it out because it doesn't make any sense for us to store it. We don't want to create another problem further down the road, and we do not have the facilities up at the top to not haul it out. So that's still the plan. We do have temporary operational shutdown procedures based on rainfall, and there's some parameters set up. They're very strict at this point, and they need to be. The geoscientist that we had come and have a look at everything is quite adamant that we obey the more stringent rules to begin with, because we don't actually have a rainfall gauge located in the village, and a lot of it is based on how much rainfall has happened at the site. So we are working to ensure that that rainfall gauge is in place, and I'll be talking to Metro Vancouver, other entities that also have intakes, people that go up to intakes, for their operational procedures in the long term. So in the short term, they really have to be quite strict. In the long term, we can start looking at how Lions Bay fits into a wet zone as opposed to a dry zone, and all these sort of finessing things that we can really sort of massage and get something that makes sense for the village. But insofar as the cleanup is concerned, we do need to abide by the stricter rules. It's just the way it is at this point. Insofar as having the water restrictions in place, the report does indicate that they obviously are still in place. It really does help us when we know how much water is being used over time. And with the restrictions in place, it seems to stay fairly steady. I mean, some days it's up, some days it's down, but it's usually around 440,000 gallons a day in a 24-hour period, say. So when we know that, then we know how much water roughly is getting pushed up to Harvey from Magnesia. We know roughly how much chlorine we have to put in. And we have been quite lucky in the last few days in that we haven't seen another really bad rush of very turbulent water hitting Magnesia. So it's starting to settle out, and we'll just keep going from there. I'm not sure if anybody has any questions with regard to the sort of other part of my report or any parts therein. If you want to ask me any questions, I will do my best to answer.
Maybe before we go on, I just want to say that, first of all, and to let staff know and LNA know that we certainly support the Pierre Fraley report regarding Table A's specifications, and take them seriously and feel that it's a vital part of the safety plan, and we support that vital part of the safety plan. There has been some, I think, active curiosity about within the village, and some sense that somehow this has got to do with the creek or a lack of maintenance. And so the report was very clear that it was the supersaturation of the till soil combined with wind, combined with a tree fall. Of course, it was way up above, and that just, it describes it quite aptly. And this has nothing to do with something that could have been prevented by our crew, or it was anyway. So I just want to just say that that because there's been so many things that have come to my attention today about people's curiosity and some of the things that might have been said. So I just want to be clear that it's been a very professional process, and I want to thank you, your team, and our partners that you've brought in to this, and your quick thinking about the EOC and the Emergency Management BC members. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Madam Mayor, do you want to just talk about the GVRD and their water? I think that's a good.
It puts it into context, yeah.
So on the same day that we had the debris slide, there were 6 slides on the other side of the same mountain range. So Metro Vancouver was scrambling around with 6 separate slides on the other side. And on the other side of the range, they had 140 millimeter rainfall in 12 hours. So this didn't just affect Lions Bay. It wasn't the only one to get a slide. Metro Vancouver, like I said, on the same day, 6 of them on the other side of the same range.
And they had to take their system offline too.
They did.
Yeah, they took all of Capilano
They had to
offline.
take everything offline.
And this is where I'd like to appreciate something as well, is that then they put on Seymour, and we put on Magnesia. I want to also note that the level of rainfall that the North Shore has experienced led Argyle School to be evacuated today due to a flood.
Yes.
And that, again, we're in every, what is it, cycle, 5-year cycle, 6-year cycle, we'll go through this kind of cycle. And it's not something that we take for granted at all. It's serious, but we are really performing well. And I have to say, and this isn't paying homage at all to Ms. Hogland, but the knowledge and calmness, the intelligence you've taken to getting us to where we are at this point is really noted, and appreciated. And that just must be said, because it's just, in absolute terms, a difference from pre-1995, where we'd all be in Horseshoe Bay or parts thereof at this point. So whereas we're just having our quiet enjoyment. So thank you very much for all that effort.
The flooding that you mentioned with regard to the district, they had 86 millimeters of rain overnight. It was a considerable amount of rain. And they did actually have to evacuate 15 homes.
Madam Mayor,
Been a
if I
very
may-
serious situation, yeah.
Yeah, you did reference this, and I think, contrary to some comments that we made by some residents, I don't believe that the citizens truly appreciate the amount of work and I think risk that our staff have taken. And you'd mentioned about Nikki's calmness. This was a very serious issue. We didn't know how bad it was, and I think her experience and her calmness, I think, certainly helped this community. This is a very small community, very small staff. Fortunately, we have very loyal staff that work for us, and what I am constantly amazed at is how much risk they're willing to put themselves to, even though Nikki is holding them back, and she's demanding that we work within safe parameters. Our guys are really keen to make this thing go, and I think, on behalf of, I think, all the residents, they deserve a heck of a lot of credit.
I really join with you, and I know council does too. So with that, if there's any other, yes, Councillor McLaughlin?
Thank you, Mayor Barton, and thank you, Ms. Hoagland, to you and your very skilled and professional staff and the partners that you brought in. Thank you for this very detailed report. Two pieces, one for Ms. Hoagland, the second one for council. On the Harvey Creek access road, up at the top, where the meshed gate is, or was, I haven't been up there in a while, which is where the original slide from the slope occurred some time ago, which is the Volkswagen-sized boulder that was on the road. Maybe moved now, but a big part of the budget was for slope and road work up in that area. Is that yes? Yes.
A previous, I'm sorry.
For your budget, which
Okay.
is somewhere. My question is, has the slope side, not in the front where the water intake or the pictures that were shown to the public, but to the right-hand side as you're facing damage, did the slope come down at all?
Through your worship, the majority of the debris that came down was directly to if you are looking at the rock chamber, it was above the rock chamber, slightly to the right of the rock chamber. It is quite a distance away from the intake gate that you refer to.
Okay, so no damage other than the direct hit?
There is
First blush.
Quite a bit of muddy debris around the site itself.
Okay.
But insofar as other rockfall that came down, nothing has come down in the area that you passed.
Thank you very much. And to Mayor Broughton and my colleagues, I think that, as is usually the case with Ms. Hoagland, this particular report is so detailed and probably hits a 10 out of 10 for resident questions. There might be some consideration for posting this on the e-post or another venue that would reach our residents.
Okay. If we can go to Mr. McGrady.
Madam, this is part of the agenda, but if you want to have it specifically sent out, I think one of the questions that does need to be talked about is the boil water advisory.
I do too.
And I think we should have discussion. We've had discussions today, as late as today, about the boil water advisory, and I think Nikki can certainly speak to that and her recommendation.
Yeah. Could
So,
you? Thank you.
As it stands right now, should council so direct, I could definitely work with Vancouver Coastal Health to have the boil water advisory lifted. However, once we get Harvey online and that up and running, and once we bring Phase 5 back on, we will have to issue another boil water advisory. So my recommendation, and it's definitely not, I mean, this is for council to decide. Do you want to rescind a boil water advisory just to have another one put on in a very short time span? Or would it make more sense to simply keep it on? Given that we don't know what we're going to be dealing with over the next couple of days with regard to even putting Harvey back on and how much debris we're actually dealing with. So, like, as I said, I can definitely work with Vancouver Coastal Health to lift it temporarily. I personally wouldn't recommend that. I would not have recommended that in other areas that I've worked, simply because optics, personally for me, I think the optics would be better if we simply kept the boil water. If you're going up and down and all over the place, it's quite difficult for people to remember if it's on, if it's not on, to know if we've just accidentally forgotten to move the signs. There's a lot of variables in there. On the other hand, consideration has to be given to people that are, come on, if we don't need it, why do we have it? And it's a balancing act, and honestly, it's direction that I need from council.
Let me take a speaking order, okay? Councillor Ando?
Can you explain why you want to bring Phase 5 tank online?
Because we would like to have the entire system up and running
You're
properly.
here.
And Phase 5 is definitely part of that. And if Harvey's up and running, then we should really have all of our system up and running so that we can ensure that the village has water the way it had before.
Because it's my understanding that they had that water in there, and if they're not using it regularly, then that water needs to be dumped. And when they dumped that water, it was causing problems for the residents that were below that tank. So
Through your worship, I
Thank you.
don't understand. I don't know what particular thing you are talking about. What I do know is that normally Phase 5 is used often in the system, and water will circulate through it just like it does any other tank.
So the Phase 5 tank is the one that's just above the Ocean View Gate? Is that?
No,
No.
No.
that
okay.
is not a tank we are talking
Okay,
about at
so
all.
we're talking about a tank over by, is it by Phase 4? And
Yeah.
Correct,
by
it's
the-
above Phase 4.
Above Phase 4, but
Correct.
on,
It's on the uphill slope above Phase 4. So normally it is part of the circulatory system of the water system itself. And we have taken it off simply to build up hydrostatic pressure to have water go to Harvey from Magnesia.
Okay. Thank you very much, Councillor Ando. Looking at what I'm noticing, so for example, when I was at someone's home on Friday night, I drink water, so I drank water. I just went over to the tap, and literally the whole room stopped. This was after the Halloween party, and said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "This is terrible role modeling," as I have my glass of water in my hand. I think that one of the things that I'm noticing, and probably much of council and perhaps the gallery as well, is people are really trying to not brush their teeth, trying to do all those things. So if we look at order of magnitude of putting out an e-post and saying, well, we're going off the boil water notice, then it's an opportunity to educate people perhaps. In a few days to a week, we'll be going back. I don't know if it is, if you just think it's a 48-hour period, but if it could be a week, a couple of weeks, I think there might be some benefit in going off and then going on again, but explaining to people why we would be going on again when we go off. But let me check in. I see lots of queries. Not from the gallery,
Oh,
from
sorry.
around the table, because I think that it's a benefit, an opportune time to just educate people about the fact that you need to do that. But if it's going to be a few days, then I'm comfortable about that. But if it's going to be longer, I think people are really concerned. They're in an active concerned phase. So let me just pass it back, if I may, to Ms. Hogland, and then come forward.
Through your worship, I'm
Yeah.
uncertain if you had a question.
Oh, my question is, what length of time do you think it might be before Harvey is up and the boil water notice would come off?
Unfortunately, I can't answer
That's
your
what I thought,
question
yeah.
with a great, because I
Yeah.
haven't had the opportunity to get a Vector truck up there, so I don't know how much we're
Yeah.
dealing with or how easy it is for the Vector truck
Right.
to get it out. So I can't give you any kind of definitive answer on that at this point in time.
Would you want something from council, like if it's going to be a short time, the next few days, then keep the boil water notice on until we have certainty around, because we will need to then have our water tested when we put up phase 5. We'll need to empty, refill, and hyperchlorinate. So with that, we'll need to test again. So that's all fine, that's all good. But if we have a 1 or 2 week gap, that's where I'm considering, maybe if we know that tomorrow, maybe we should be considering educating the community.
Your worship, I'm not going to know the answer tomorrow.
Oh,
I
okay,
won't know the answer until Friday, if we
okay,
manage to get a Vector truck up there.
okay.
So keeping in mind that we also are dealing with rain and my ability to actually access the site. So I can't give you definitive answers because I honestly don't know what the rain will bring. I don't know what the Vector truck will encounter once it actually gets on the site.
Yeah. Yes, Mr.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I think the challenge that we're facing right now is that last night in West Vancouver, they had 86 centimeters of rain. Incredible
point.
turbidity
Yeah.
that took place. We didn't see that here, and so
No.
in discussions today, we aren't sure whether in fact it hasn't reached as yet, or we, for whatever reason, we didn't get as much rain, and we didn't get any the slides that West Vancouver and North Vancouver got. It is expected to start raining again tomorrow,
Okay.
and it's from the forecast. I think it's for another couple of weeks. I think pretty heavy rains. That's our challenge,
Okay.
and so we would like to take the boil advisory off, obviously, and I think there are advantages to doing that. Our concern, though, is that if we took it off and we get turbidity tomorrow, then we have
Putting
to
it
put it
back
back on. There may be an opportunity that we don't get, or there may be that we may not get any turbidity for a while, and it may take a week to 2 weeks to get this up. Unfortunately, the weather pattern is extremely bad. As we all know, this is the tail end of the typhoon or hurricane, whatever it is.
Okay,
yeah.
can that be noted? I didn't realize
Yeah,
that.
this is the tail end of the
Yeah.
the Japanese hurricane, I think it was.
Okay,
And that's why it's so mild weather. And so
Okay.
anyways, we will attempt to take the boil water advisory off. If people are not brushing their teeth, boil the water,
Totally.
or get bottled water.
no, I mean, they are, I don't mean they're not brushing their teeth. Literally, I mean that they're using other means, yeah.
Okay, so we will attempt to do this.
Don't put
Nikki's
that
keeping me informed. Every time she hears something that's going on. One of the big problems we've been facing, as Nikki pointed out, is that it was extremely dangerous, and we weren't allowed to get up there. And that's one of the things that has caused us problems of moving on this as quickly as we wanted to. Is that the slope was unstable, and we were not allowed to get up there.
Councillor Bain?
Just some thoughts on it is that I think when you get a boil water advisory, you change your patterns in your daily living. And I think if it's on and off again, you're changing your patterns back and forth, and it gets more difficult. And if it's just for a couple of days, like you're suggesting, I would say just leave it on.
Yes.
Because I would imagine if you're going to get Coastal Health to approve it, it's going to eat up more of your time. Could your time be better spent doing something else? I would just as soon keep boiling water until we had a good clear shot and we can just put our feet up and relax afterwards.
Councillor Ando and then Councillor McLaughlin?
I would more tend to agree with Mayor Broughton that we should take it off because we don't know how long it's going to take to clean up the wood debris, clean up the sediment debris, and whether we're gonna get a truck up there, bringing the stuff out, that could be 2-3 weeks. And if we can not have a boil advisory for that period of time, I think it gives the residents a break. And when we need to put it back on, we put it back on. We're using a lot of energy as well, just to boil
Yeah,
water so that we can
yeah.
drink it when we don't necessarily have to. So I would be in support of removing boil water unless it's 48 hours that we think that we're going to need it again. And I don't see that as being a realistic being able to clean and to bring the system online and to open tank 5, so, or phase 5 tank. So that would be my opinion.
If I may, maybe I should repeat myself.
Oh, McLaughlin and then you.
If the weather pattern, it was dry, then staff would certainly support that. It's supposed to start raining tomorrow.
Yeah.
We're still getting they're still forecasting very heavy rains in the double-digit 50, 40, 50, 60 centimeters per day. That's what causes turbidity, and that's what we're concerned about, is that if it is a dry spell, we would fully support that. And, obviously, this is a political decision. The concern, though, is that if we get turbidity, if we lifted it tomorrow, and if Coastal Health allowed us, and we get turbidity, then we have to put it back on. And I think from our point of view, and you can direct us whatever way you wish, is that some people are going to say, well, don't they know what they're doing? So we don't know the weather, what's going to happen. We just know that last night, very heavy rains, projected to be heavy rains for the next couple of weeks.
Okay. If I can go to Councillor McLaughlin after you, Councillor Rando, and then Councillor Ronsley.
Thank you, Mayor Broughton. It's pretty clear to me the situation's pretty fluid, and the works manager's time is best spent doing works manager jobs. To this extent, this isn't a political decision for me. It's about what's efficient for our staff, and in that respect, the chain of command is the works manager, the interim CAO, in contact with the mayor, and I'm fine with the decision that's reached at the time.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Ronsley?
I'm fine with the decision that we will take ultimately. I think the community needs information, and they need really where we are and where we may be going, and the uncertainty. I think it's a very good point that Councillor Ando made. We're using energy in order to keep our water safe. We're all into it, but that's what we're doing. I think I have to go with the decision of the professionals here on the staff, and but I think critical is information, succinct information to the community, and very promptly. I have confidence that we'll make the right decision, and I also think it's important that council be the transport of information in the community. We have an obligation to let people know what's going on. Let's speak out. I think we all understand the situation. Let's talk about it over the fence when we're talking with our neighbors or in the mail room.
If I can just say this, is that I think an e-post would be really helpful at this time. Given the weather, I fully support just continuing on at this time, and I think Councillor Ando, you'd probably join me on that, with the weather going up and down. Particularly, you saw the flash flood today with evacuating a whole high school. For those of you who don't know, Argyle School, it's an enormous school. It's a regular high school, large high school. But I think succinct information via e-post, just identifying what the reason is for the boil water notice and for the continued boil water notice, that it is because of the hurricane. I don't know if anybody knows the name of the hurricane, but in Japan, and we're at the tail end of that. So, Mr. McGradu, I think that the information regarding the hurricane, I do not think anybody knows that. I didn't know that. You do know that? Yeah. But the people who are contacting me today, they don't know it, and they're being given, you know, everybody's asking, and people fill the blanks in. It's like a puzzle that the pieces fit together, but it's the wrong picture, I feel like. So we want the right picture, and we're doing such a good job, and we're in such good shape, given what has occurred, that we're sitting here and we're basically have running water. So if we could do the prepare an e-post, maybe just saying the continued boil water notice is as a result of not knowing when we need to put it back on again, and so we're keeping it off to keep your personal habits good. But to talk about the hurricane in Japan, just that we're at the tail end of that.
Madam Mayor, is a further complicating factor that's facing us right now, and I'm going to ask Nikki to speak to that.
Yeah.
Well, there's two things. If I could just say one word about the turbidity.
Yes, please.
When we put the boil water advisory on initially,
Yeah.
it was a difference of, so we didn't have a boil water advisory for quite a considerable amount of time after the debris slide had occurred.
Yeah.
But when the turbidity hit, it hit really hard and really fast. So it was the difference of an hour where the turbidity went from mid 3 point something to almost 12. That is a huge jump. And it was something that we were quite surprised with. So my concern would be that we'll get another one of those spikes. And rainfall definitely plays a part in that. But also, we don't really know, honestly, what's further upstream. We've looked right in our area, but there could be something else that's further upstream. The rain either gets more pronounced or it slows down. Either one could cause something to shift. More debris comes down through the intake, and bingo, we've got a lot more turbulence. So. However, that's one piece of the puzzle with the turbulence. The other bit that is really difficult at this point in time, and it's what interim CEO McGrado is discussing, is the Harvey intake has been designated by a geoscientist as hazardous terrain upslope.
Yeah.
What that means with regard to weather is, if we have prolonged rainfall or heavy rainfall that's over 10 millimeters, a very small amount in this area, if it's over 10 millimeters in 12 hours, I can't have anybody working there. I have to shut it down. That is not a lot of rain. So right now, as we have to work under these standards, 10 millimeters is nothing compared to 86 yesterday, to 40 or 50 that could come at any point in time. So that is definitely going to hinder our ability to do what would normally seem to be a fairly straightforward procedure.
If I may,
Yes,
Madam Mayor,
please.
I'm not sure if the community, maybe we could do that in the e-post, just explain what turbidity is. So I'm not sure if everybody truly understands what turbidity means,
Yes.
and so we can explain that. The other thing is that in order to lift the boil advisory, we have to have 3 days of consistent readings of less than, I can't remember what it is.
Yeah, so five NTUs is the turbidity.
That's right.
And so in this unsettled weather where we're getting massive amount of rain in a short period of time, turbidity can occur very quickly.
Immediately.
And that's why when Nikki and I spoke this afternoon and saying, well, even if council said remove it tonight, because we talked about that and we're quite prepared to, based on your comments, we're not sure whether Coastal Health will even allow us to remove it.
It's not
now,
our
we've had
decision.
3 days, but based on the upward slope and what happened in North Vancouver, even if you wanted to, we may not be able to. Nikki, we fully understand we're trying to get this off as quickly as we possibly can. But we don't want to confuse the public, and we don't want to panic the public. We don't want to put our staff in danger. So, we're working, diligently, and I think, we're working with Minister of Forests, we're working with the other ministries and with private contractors and consultants. And I think we're getting some good advice.
Yeah, I do too. If I can say this, is that I think that if we could come together as council to support this initiative for the continuance of the boil water, and also to put out a brief information, brief means, I guess, enough information that you think is important for the community to have, just so that they understand it. And that's just because there's been so much, apparently, discussion out there, and it just helps that. And I don't want to put that on your shoulders, so I recognize that is, a communication tool, and I know you're very busy, but yes.
Yeah, Brighton, it'd be pretty easy to post this report, which covers, again, 10 out of 10. And I think the topic we're talking, it could probably go as the second one within a day or two. Or not to pick staff's time, but sometime later this week.
If staff are fine with that.
It was worded with more to come.
Yeah. If staff are fine with that, yeah.
We'll work it out.
Okay, fantastic. So I don't know that you need a resolution on that. I just leave it in your capable hands. Councillor Ando?
I'm going to leave the turbidity thing alone at the moment, but I have some other questions if you don't mind. The number 3, the very second to last sentence, where we're talking.
Which number 3 are we talking about? Sorry, I've got numbers everywhere.
Page 3.
So background 3, so emergency operations installation?
Yeah. So the second to last sentence, at approximately 5:30 p.m., it was reported back to staff that the debris slide was approximately 30 meters wide by 200 meters high.
Correct.
So that's a length and a width, but you don't know how deep the slide was. Is that correct? So it's covering about 200 meters of the road, and it's 30 meters wide. So if you have the access road like this going up to the weir, which is the 200 meters?
Going up slope. So we have the pictures may have provided a bit of clarity with regard to that, but I understand your question, through your worship. So yeah, it's very hard to tell exactly where it begins and ends, because a lot of it is like quicksand, right? It's quite difficult. But insofar as how much came down the actual slope, the height of it is 200 meters, the width of it is 30. A lot of it is contained insofar as, it came down, it almost gullied out, and it's all piled up. We do not know how deep it is. That is one of the reasons we need to get rid of the wood, because it could be misleading.
And so has anybody estimated how many dump trucks or how many loads you're going to need to take it out?
We haven't had the ability to get up there for that length of time to be able to determine that.
I see.
So it would be on a schedule of rates. We can't even begin to think about how much it is. It's impossible to know until we get rid of the wood at the very least.
Just as a follow-up, if I may,
Thank you.
because the PAP, Provincial Emergency Program number was taken, those costs are going to be borne by the provincial government.
That part I understand. So was anybody able to look at the weir itself? Was there lots of debris that came into the weir itself too? Did it extend that far past the shed where the water comes in?
Sure. Through your worship, two different things occurred. So the first thing that occurred was the debris slide, and I don't know actually in which order, so I'm just going first insofar as how I'm going to talk about them. So we had a debris slide that came down and caused a fair bit of damage to the road and engulfed some things. But the other thing that happened was Harvey Creek had a lot of debris that was just torrenting down it. And so part of the problem that we ran into is not only did we have debris coming off the side of the mountain, but we had a considerable amount of it in the creek itself. And so what happened is a lot of sediment and rocks and things like that ended up coming through the pipe at the weir, filling that up, going all the way down the pipe into our rock chamber and filling it up as well. So We had a considerable amount of debris in the water. The water was racing, so it rushed it through the pipe, the inlet pipe. And with it, with the water, it also carried gravel and sediment, which then filled up our rock chamber, which is a series of grids. And once that filled up, the sediment just started backing up in the pipe. So on the very end of the weir itself, there's a valve, and we can't get to the valve because it's completely engulfed in sediment. So there was rock and debris and water that came right over the top of the weir. If you look at the weir right now, it looks like brand new concrete because it's been scoured clean. It's just been polished by debris and water and the force of both of those.
Yes, Councillor Ando.
From the pictures, a number of those trees look like dressed trees. Like they weren't like living trees that had come down and were in that debris. I'm wondering why there's that much dead wood up there, dressed trees up there, and are we going to try and resolve that after all of this is done?
Through your worship, I don't have the capacity to answer Councillor Ando's question. I don't understand how forestry would operate with regard to their trees. It's trees that are on crown land that came down. And I would think that a lot of what ended up at the bottom had probably gone through considerable upheaval on the way through. So I honestly, I don't know if the trees were dressed or they ended up looking the way they did because they hit about 123 things on the way back.
Okay. Logging did occur up above. When I looked at the pictures that you had, they looked like trees that had been knocked out, having seen the post debris slide of 1983, and I know what a cut log looks like. No matter if it's been up there 50 years, it still looks like a cut log. Those don't look like cut logs, but they might. There might be some, but I believe you'd be able to say some of them are cut logs, some of them aren't cut logs. But because they are, a cut log is literally a cut log. It looks like it could be taken to the mill right now, even though it's been decades. So when I looked at it, just from my experience in 1983, Councillor Ando, I did not think that. I didn't wonder if some of them were cut logs, but it's certainly worthy of understanding while you're up there. But a cut log remains looking like a cut log. It's very interesting.
Through your worship to Councillor Ando, if this helps at all, the geoscientist's observation was that the slide was likely triggered by wind throw, and there was a 1.5 to 2 meter diameter Douglas fir tree that had been thrown down slope and torpedoed downhill some 100 meters before stopping. So
that's what it looked like.
His report would lead me to believe, at least for the initial triggering point, that it was a tree that was still standing.
Yeah. That's my understanding as well. Yes, Councillor Ando, and then I'm going to just go to other council members, if I may.
The rebuilding or fixing the road at the top of Ocean View, do you think that cost will still be within the budget that council had set in our capital projects for the year, CapEx for the year?
Through your worship,
Thank you.
I can't answer that question until I get the design. I have no reason to believe that it won't be, but I won't know until I get the design and a class estimate from the engineer who's going to be putting together the design.
Thank you very much. Anything else that other council members have to ask? I would say also that this is an excellent report, and council agree that it goes out, and thank you very much. Is there anything you would like to add?
I have nothing to add at this point.
Right. Well, I'd like to say that that the number of hours that you've put in is immense, and the commitment, as Mr. McGrath has said, on your part and all of the team's part has been stalwart. I'm glad that Pierre Fraley was very clear in Table A of the report, because I think it protects our staff with that level of commitment that you take to it. It just draws the line in the sand about what's safe and what is not safe under these conditions. So I'd like to thank all you as the team leader for ensuring that that standard is met, and thank you, Mr. McGrattu, as well. And just if you can pass along just our deep gratitude on behalf of all of the community. Thank you. And please feel free to go and get much needed
Rest.
rest.
Thank you.
Thank
yes,
you
please.
very much.
Thank you very much. If we can then move forward to resolutions, to the House Sound resolution, and it's a resolution that comes out of the October 17th meeting of the House Sound Community Forum, which the Squamish Nation hosted at the Sea to Sky Gondola. And this is really, I think, a watershed resolution. I think it's a watershed moment where Chief Gibby Jacob, who's a hereditary chief of external affairs for the Squamish Nation, who've been probably one of the oldest corporations in Canada, and worked directly with the Prime Ministers of Canada. And he spoke, as Councillor Joanne Ronsley heard as well, to say, let's start doing things together. And it was a watershed moment. I think I mentioned that last meeting. But we've got a resolution before us identifying, and I thought that I'd just quickly read it out, if I may. The whereases, the background I've mentioned. Squamish Nation Council member Chris Lewis announced to the forum members the Squamish Nation's decision to start the process of a marine use plan for Howe Sound, with the goal to identify areas in the marine environment that they want to protect. The Squamish Nation's intention through the Howe Sound Community Forum is to forge a partnership, appeal to agencies and local governments for help. The nation seeks to find ways to sustain their livelihoods and their livelihoods of neighboring communities while still protect the ecosystem. Squamish Nation has in place the Swaytemquak Sacred Land Use Plan, which describes the community's vision for the future of the forests and wilderness of the traditional territory. A marine use plan for Howe Sound is the next phase of planning. In response to this announcement, members of the Howe Sound Community Forum may respond, and we're members, with the following resolution. Be it resolved, the Village of Lions Bay thanks the Squamish Nation for hosting the Howe Sound Community Forum on October 17, 2014, and for the attendance of Chief Gibby Jacob, Chief Bill Williams, Councillors Chris Lewis, Josh Joseph, and Richard Baker. And we respectfully acknowledge and support Squamish Nation's intention to commence marine planning for Howe Sound. And could I invite a mover and a seconder of that motion?
Please.
Councillor Ronsley, thank you. And a seconder, Councillor Bain, thank you so much. And while this seems ceremonial, they're joining with their marine planning with the cumulative effects assessment framework that the Ministry of Forest Lands and Natural Resources is bringing to the table and has agreed to fund, and this is significant. So if I can, we have it moved and seconded. Are there any comments that any councillors would like to make? There being none, call question on the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. I'm going to move us ahead then. No, nothing at bylaws, and then go to correspondence. Could I have council move receipt of correspondence? Thank you, Councillor McLaughlin and Councillor Ando. Thank you. All those in favour of receipt? Carried unanimously. And any that council would particularly like to highlight or pull out? Thank you, Councillor Bain.
I've got the G2 second one.
Yeah. Okay. And I am going to highlight G1, G3, and G5, if that's okay. So,
Yeah. This one's about the provincial decision about what they're calling the threat of recycling in Metro Vancouver. It caused me a bit of concern because Metro Vancouver is now saying that the decision that has been made is a commitment, means the commitment of our citizens to recycling and waste avoidance becomes virtually unachievable. And they're if I could just sort of digest it down, they're essentially saying that big corporations for hauling garbage away are basically going to put recycling out of business. But it wasn't too long ago that I heard Metro Vancouver talking about incineration, which the recyclers of the area were also saying that incineration was going to put them out of business. So I'm finding this is getting really confusing. Are we going to keep recycling, or is one group fencing off against the other one to put one out of the business? Because I think everybody wants to keep on with recycling. So I'm having trouble coming to grips with this piece of
Good for you noting
correspondence.
that. There is going to be a 3-month review led by Marvin Hunt, who's an MLA in Surrey, and he's probably the perfect regional cusp person because he lives in Surrey. Fraser Valley supports this. I would support the initiative of turning this bylaw down. It's a bylaw that actually supports all of the waste going to Vancouver to feed the beast, if you like. It's a preparatory bylaw to waste to energy. Copenhagen's going out of the waste to energy business. Sweden is currently importing garbage. Imagine Sweden importing garbage. So this bylaw is to prevent them having to import garbage, keeping the garbage there, keeping the recycling there. And so what's happening is the recycling companies and the business chambers of commerce are voting against waste to energy at this point and against the bylaw, because the bylaw is keeping it here and then ultimately it's going to be part of the tonnage that would support feeding the beast if it needs to. So that's just the term that's used. Sorry, I'm not being pejorative at all. It's just a term of making sure, because it's a private-public partnership that would be entered into, and you then guarantee the tonnage per year. And so our tonnage is going down, down, down. The other thing that's happening, just as Councillor Ronsley and I were at the Table Matters meeting, and we were approached by an organization that takes organics to the north of us, and we brought that forward. And then they recycle the organics into earth, and then they recycle the earth back into your community, et cetera. So there's those kinds of things and opportunities. So there will be a 3-month review that, as I say, MLA, now MLA, but former Surrey Council member Marvin Hunt. And Marvin actually is in an interesting position because he was the chair of the waste management of the solid waste board at Metro for at least 3 years. If not longer, but has probably listened and learned to a lot of the conversation is going to be longer than short. I think that there was a thought that it was going to be quite a short conversation, and they're now getting into the fine particulate waste, of course, that's really important, and starting to measure it. And they've hired somebody from the Ministry of Environment, and he's been very good, and prior to that they didn't have anybody about air quality. And of course, in Lions Bay, what those of you who are newer to Lions Bay wouldn't be aware of is we used to be able to smell the direction that the wind ran from Port Mellon area, which is one of the sites. But we know that the wind hasn't changed. It still goes behind the northern tip of Gambier and flows right past Lions Bay. But we really want to look at the health of the people of the Howe Sound. So thank you for bringing that forward. But if you could just keep your eye on that kind of literature. And I know you brought it forward as a question mark. Don't we want to recycle? Yes, we do want to recycle. And in fact, that's why the recyclers are saying they're against the bylaw. So they lobbied the province successfully at this point. Anything else there? That I know that can be a bit confusing. I just want to go to say that 2 soldiers passed away on Canadian soil, Corporal Nathan Cirillo and Warrant Officer Patrice Vincent. And our Remembrance Day leader, Trudy Luthi, emailed me to say, are you watching the service when the first service was on. And I watched both services, and I want to just say I can't not comment on the sacrifice that has been made, and this is in John Weston's letter, by these two soldiers, and how Canada honored them. And when in watching it on TV, as any of you who did, would have been so proud, and both those communities, relatively small communities, honoring them with such great dignity. So I just wanted to mention that. I don't know if anybody else would like to mention anything there. And then G3, if there's nothing there, I just want to mention that the games are on for the New Build Canada grant, and you can see when you read that letter that we knew that it started October 22nd, but you don't read the letter, you snooze, you lose. It has a closing date, February 18th. So, and there's going to be 2 openings, period, and they haven't told us the date of the second opening, of course. But so we'll just have to watch for it. But there is an opening, if it could be noted, October 22nd. We knew that, but the closing is February 18th, 2015, and we do need to know that in relation to preparation for engineering reports and the current preparation we're doing for a Build Canada grant. And then just lastly, and I mentioned this last time, but the investment in clean technology and the group, Merritt Shredsky, Russell Baker, and a third party of Lions Bay, and just looking at that wind energy and the fact that they are doing that, and with a significant grant of $1.5 million. So just to acknowledge the creativity and green initiatives of our own community members. So I'll stop there. Any other letters? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to move us along then to new business. Update to policy, POL 1407, and if we could thank Ms. Kuntz for the development of that, community facility rentals. And perhaps we can turn to Mr. McGrattu to add anything there.
Madam Mayor, I think the information was provided to you earlier
Okay.
on. So.
Thank you very much. Now, what council would see is that this would come before us in September, but with all the questions that are starting to arise wonderfully as a result of the community center opening and finding out that we're under new, stricter rules, not because the community center closed and opened, but because Vancouver Coastal has different guidelines, and we need to reflect that in this. And so the purpose of the community facility rentals policy is to provide guidelines for the rental of the Lions Bay Community Hall, kitchen and village meeting rooms according to the event descriptions and rental rates as listed in fees and charges bylaw 462. There has been noted in red, and I believe that, I don't know if you want a resolution tonight or just a review tonight.
Madam Mayor, the resolution.
The resolution. If we can ask council to move and second the changes that have been noted, and the changes are noted there because it comes more in line with Vancouver Coastal. We thought we were in line with Vancouver Coastal. They've made some changes. We also have a link to Vancouver Coastal within the policy so that people understand how they can garner more information, or what the link is, not a link, but what the link is. And so if I may ask council to move and second. Thank you, Councillor McLaughlin, and a seconder, Councillor Ronsley. And any further discussion? Councillor Ando and Councillor Bain.
I was wondering how an event like Santa's Breakfast would be impacted by this.
If I can just give my 2 cents worth from Susan Lautet, a staff member, answering that question as we unpacked the kitchen and had people coming and going asking that question on Friday, and I can maybe rely on Mr. McGrattu to bunt me a little bit. But they have apparently always had to apply for a permit. So they will continue to apply for the permit. I don't know how much in advance they needed to apply for a permit before, but now it's 2 weeks. So they need to apply for the permit. It's the same process, so it won't affect them. But they might, maybe I should say this, I don't want to speak with any knowledge of that at that level, but I think they should check in with the front desk. But Susan said it would be they've been applying for Ms. Lautet said that they've been applying for permits during this period of time, and they will just need to apply for the permit, but they probably should check in with our front desk. Councillor Bain.
Yeah, when I read the food service permit section, I was just kind of wondering how that would impact the ESS group if they have group lodging for a disaster. Would they be given a waiver, or how would that be handled?
Gee, you know what, we should probably arrange, that's got to be covered in Vancouver Coastal Health.
Madam Mayor,
Yeah.
I think, in any type of emergency, we still have to follow the guidelines. However, depending on how emergent the emergency is, then we would proceed to follow up and seek, if we violated any regulations, then we'd have to address that afterwards. But as far as I know, EOC does trump the regs, but we'll follow that up.
Yeah. Probably EOC wouldn't be necessarily preparing the food on the site. They might be, but...
ESS.
Pardon me,
ESS.
not EOC, ESS, thank you. Initially, before they could get that permit, I don't know. But I think that that's a good question to follow up. I don't know if you'd be willing to follow up on it.
We will, both of
Yeah,
us can.
okay, could you? Okay. So with that, could I call a question on the motion? All those in favor? Carried unanimously. And then we go to public questions and comments. Thank you. Ms. Wilkie?
Strange to come up with that moment. The boil water advisory is on, and you're discussing that, which is fine. But there's also a conserve water advisory. I think in people's minds, in mine anyway, as soon as that boil water's off, I'm having a bath. So
Oh, I get you.
I think
So maybe
we
the...
take both of them together, and I think what
Excellent.
we're doing was right, because people will start using water as soon as that's taken off.
Thank you for that example. That's a really lovely example. Okay, any other further? None, seeing none, move to adjournment. Could I have council move and second adjournment? Thank you, Councillor Ando, Councillor Bain. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you very much.